Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another tropical update here by Weather Forecast. Today is the official start to the Atlantic hurricane season, so we are already talking about tropical activity potentially for the Atlantic already, and we've had a lot of activity for the preseason, and now we already have Invest 93L for June 1st, which is the start of hurricane season. I'll be tracking every single system that forms, and also going to be tracking landfalls, major systems, all season long. Of course, we have Invest 93L here in the Gulf or the Bay of Campeche that could very well likely possibly make a U.S. landfall in the coming days, maybe even next week, as a potential hurricane or tropical storm. We're going to be looking at all the factors such as wind shear, SSTs, all of that to see exactly whether this thing has the conditions to form. But before we get in the video, please subscribe, of course, if you're new, and also be sure to share the video to any friends or family. But without further ado, let's get in this video. So let's go ahead and start off with the National Hurricane Center here. They have updated their forecast for Invest 93L. It is now at a high risk for the next from now to the next 5 days. It has a 80% chance for development within the next 5 days. So as you see from really, it has a pretty good chance for cyclonic formation. We are seeing some disturbed weather here, with some disturbed thunderstorms and rain showers across the parts of the Bay of Campeche. We do actually have a ton of we have very favorable environmental conditions, and it's going to get even more favorable as the system continues to strengthen the Bay of Campeche with warm SSTs, little shear, but by the time this thing actually moves out into the central Gulf, and also very little dry air. So very favorable conditions. So this could very well potentially become a named storm within the next 5 days here. So, and it seems like this thing has a very weird track, which we'll be looking at very soon. Let's go and check out the brightness temperature here, or just another satellite imagery here. And this thing is very organized for an Invest, and you know why? Because this was once Amanda, and this is actually the same thing, remnants of Amanda and Invest 93L. It's weird to think of this thing as two things, remnants of Amanda and Invest 93L. So it's quite weird if you really think about it here. But this is exactly why it is so organized. This can probably take people will mistake this for a tropical storm. If you say it's a tropical storm, many people will probably believe you. But look at this thing, very organized as a tropical or as an Invest here. So as you see, we have we already have our cyclonic formation. This thing is actually going over Mexico and Belize right now. So it obviously is going to weaken, and that's exactly what's an Invest, or remnants of Amanda in both. But it's going to be heading toward the Bay of Campeche, which is right here. It's exactly where we have our 80% chance for development of a named storm here. So that's exactly why it has the next 48 hours has a 80% chance as well, because this thing's going to be heading into the ocean right now. So very interesting here, very organized. As you see, we are starting to see this thing die down a tad, but of course, as it does go in the ocean, we can possibly see this become a tropical storm Amanda. And it's actually gonna it actually might stop for halfway through the Bay of Campeche, so this thing could very well be in the ocean for a very long time and won't even make landfall in the United States if it does until later next week, which is weird to think about how this thing's already in Invest, but won't make landfall for really a week or more. So as we now look into the satellite imagery, of course, this thing's looking very organized here as well. Here you actually, let me pause this before, because it was dark earlier on. So let's go ahead and check this out right here. So here we actually have here we have this Invest right here. This whole system is our Invest or remnants of Amanda. It's both. It's actually both. So here we have we are going to be seeing a lot of dense cloud cover here. Actually, the other way around. We're going to be seeing some very dense cloud cover here. So very interesting. Going to be seeing our low pressure system to form right here. Most likely, this thing's going to be heading out into the Gulf, into the Bay of Campeche. As you see, this thing is, our cloud cover is moving more and more into the Bay of Campeche. We do actually have Cancun. You guys are seeing some very dense cloud cover from this. We're seeing dense cloud cover all the way into parts of Honduras. Can see some very dense cloud cover for parts of Guatemala, of course. Belize, still going to be seeing quite the dense cloud cover. This thing says it may not be the cloud cover from the main system, but we actually have a lot of cloud cover from the outskirts of this all the way over here. So this thing's very, very large if you really think about it, and this thing could really well even maybe take. People can mistake this for maybe even a hurricane. That's exactly how organized the system is right here. You can just by looking at satellite imagery, not like the strength, not the wind, but just by the satellite imagery, this thing can be really mistaken for a Category 1 or a tropical storm, not even an invest. I would never have guessed an invest really. So early in the video where I was at the NHC, I said how this thing has a very interesting track and how it actually might stall in the Bay of Campeche, with the Bay of Campeche is right here, of course. This is the Bay of Campeche here, and as you see, it's right here in southern Mexico. Really can kind of see how weird this track is. It's going to be kind of going this way. It's going to rotate and then go out into the Gulf. As you see, this is exactly why you see 144 hours. It's so weird. You see 24 hours is right here. And then just right north, it's 168 hours. That's exactly why it's such a big difference. So this is exactly why I said this thing could very well actually be in the ocean for a very, very long time. The Bay of Campeche is very warm, has very favorable conditions, very little shear. The strongest shear is actually in the central Gulf right now, which you'll see in the last thing in the video. But this thing's going to rotate. It's going to go straight to the west, so it doesn't look like it's going to actually affect the United States, or really it might actually affect Mexico again, but it's actually going to rotate and then go back into the Gulf. So really it would be like this. Actually, so I'm going to try to do the cone like that. This would be the weird cone, as you see, very, very weird cone. So as you see, this thing could very well stall for actually maybe 2 days. This thing could stall. It goes from 24 hours to now 96 hours here. So it's going to take a while for this thing to actually rotate. It'll definitely be very interesting. And then after it actually does it, not all the models are showing it actually doing that rotation. As you see, some models are showing it here for the next 48 hours, 72 hours. So some models actually show it going straight up to the Gulf, the central Gulf, which actually will not only make this thing maybe a tad weaker, but it also will make landfall earlier. But if it does do that rotation, this thing could very well be a lot stronger as it's in the warmer water for a longer time. Let's go and check out the tracks and also the central pressure here, or with the central pressure. Like I said, here in the next 24 hours, it'll be 1,009 millibars right here. So like I said, really you're going to be seeing that weird track. It's going to be doing a very weird rotation, going straight to the Gulf. This thing most likely will make landfall in the Louisiana area or Texas area, so just gonna have to watch out for a while. This thing could make landfall at 168 hours, which I don't exactly know. Again, that's a little bit more over a week, I think, and it could possibly make landfall at 999 millibars. This thing could possibly strengthen a lot, and I mean a lot, in between this general area. This thing could possibly be at 995 millibars. Maybe 997, and it will weaken right before landfall at 999. We're going to see very favorable conditions. We're seeing very moist air, no dry air, which obviously dry air will weaken minimize the process or possibility of something to form. Very little shear, and also warm SSTs that will continue transition in that La Nina. That Nina phase. So as you see, going to be taking a weird turn and going straight into the Gulf. So this could also be our second U.S. landfall so far. Not necessarily of the hurricane season, because hurricane season just started today, but of basically the hurricane season kind of started a lot earlier this year. Once we actually had Arthur and Bertha. When Bertha made landfall, that kind of was the start of the hurricane season. So technically, this will be our second landfall of not basically of the hurricane season. Let's go and check out the intensity guidance of Invest 93L. This thing could very well become a tropical storm. The range is the next 24 hours to possibly the next 60 hours. So either way, very soon we can possibly have Cristobal, and this thing actually might break the record of the earliest sea ever to form. The earliest sea to be named, or earliest sea ever. The record, I believe, is June 5th. This thing could form either June 2nd or maybe June 4th. June 4th at latest. And if we have Cristobal tomorrow, it will be absolutely crazy breaking that record by days. So this Invest 93L could very well make history. So as you see, this thing really 80 or maybe 70% of the models do show it actually being a TS or more. I would not rule out the possibility of having maybe a hurricane. I think this has a better chance of being a hurricane than Bertha or Arthur. If Arthur and Bertha formed without me, if I didn't know Bertha or Arthur formed and the location, the location and the conditions, I will still say, this thing could very well actually have favorable conditions. Because not only it's in the Gulf of Mexico, but Bertha and Arthur were in the southeastern coast, which obviously isn't as warm this time of the year. It was a bit above average, but still, the Gulf of Mexico, and also this will be in the ocean a lot longer. As you see, this thing can be in the ocean for the next 24 hours, all the way to 168 hours. So this thing could be a tropical storm while landfall. I'm not going to rule out the possibility for this thing to maybe become a hurricane before landfall, so this could possibly be a weaker hurricane. But the icon models, really models are all over the place, just to say the least. GFS isn't showing a single thing on the future radar. CMC is showing it. Icon is showing it, but Icon showing it being a category. Basically, the Icon showing it becoming a major hurricane. So we have models all over the place, and this thing could be named by as early as tomorrow. So definitely need to have as much and as accurate information. Like these models actually need to actually agree. So here's a CMC model. Here we have the low pressure system right here. So here we have Invest 93L in the next 6 hours. Let's go and check the next 24 hours here. The next 24 hours, this thing could very well possibly be, this is the earliest this thing will be named, really. I'm not saying it's going to be named in the next 24 hours. That's not the time frame. The time frame really is 24 hours to 60 hours. So this thing might not even be named until 2 days from now. So maybe even June 3rd or June 4th. Or actually, the latest I'll say was probably June 3rd. The low pressure, since we're sitting out there in the Bay of Campeche. And as you see, this thing is taking a very weird turn. So this is where it is right here. It's right here in the next 60 hours. Still in the western Bay of Campeche. It's taking that weird turn, like we saw. It's going to take that weird turn and then hit that Louisiana area. So this is exactly what we're looking at there. So could very well see this possibly become a system in the Bay of Campeche. And then we have it doing that weird turn, and it finally comes out here. It finally comes out in the next it finally comes out there. Actually, this is actually the GFS. The GFS is not showing anything. GFS is not showing the GFS is showing it forming really in the Bay of Campeche, but isn't showing it forming like in the Gulf of Mexico. The GFS is actually showing it actually making another landfall in Mexico. Let's go and check out the CMC model here. So the CMC model, here we have it, a low pressure system right there. Here it is showing that that low pressure system. The next 36 hours, you're at 1,008 millibars. And the CMC is not showing it taking that weird turn. GFS does. GFS shows it actually taking that turn, but actually hitting Mexico again. But CMC is actually just actually going to stall a little bit in the next 66 hours. This thing's going to kind of stall and then heads toward the Gulf. So here you're going to see it go to all the way to 998 millibars. Like I said, this thing can be very well below 1,000 millibars, and it's going to be next 102 hours by Friday, June 5th. So this thing, June 5th is the deadline of making history or breaking the record, and it's going to be a system for sure. This could definitely be a tropical storm or definitely a tropical storm, and then it's going to be going to 996, and it could make landfall. This thing could stall a tad before landfall. As you see, it looks like it's going to hit Louisiana, but it's going to stall. So this thing can be catastrophic flooding. And then the CMC shows it making landfall actually in Texas. So it looks like it's going to hit Louisiana. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. You guys probably can't see it really that good. So it looks like it's going to make landfall in the Louisiana. The low pressure is going to be like right off the coast. But it kind of like stalls and makes landfall actually in the border. So basically, Louisiana and Texas will be getting an impact no matter what. Rainfall totals are crazy, guys. We can possibly see a ton of landfall. We're going to be seeing this. You can kind of track the system. Going to be seeing this going right like this. So we can possibly have the 2+ feet of rain in the Gulf. 2+ feet. And we can possibly see up to a foot of rain for parts of Louisiana Gulf Coast. Let's go and check out the icon model really quickly. Let's go check out the icon model. This will be the last thing we'll be looking at. The last model we'll be looking at here. Let's look at the icon. So icon showing it at 1,004. It's actually going to be showing it not taking that term necessarily. It's going to show it up to all the way to 992 millibars right here, all the way to the next almost 60 hours. So this thing can very well possibly be close to a Category 1 hurricane based on the icon before making that landfall. So we're going to go ahead and wait for this thing to actually fully load so we can actually show you that. But the icon's very, very interesting here. Let's go and check out the wind speeds here for the CMC here. Not going to be seeing the really strong winds until we actually have this thing forming really in the next 66 hours with strongest wind there. And this thing could obviously have quite the powerful winds up to possibly 40+ knots, and then of course affecting the south central. GFS, for those people who want to see the GFS model, GFS not showing anything whatsoever. It's just showing the really strong winds for parts of the western Bay of Campeche, which is exactly where it's actually possibly showing, making that second landfall for parts of Mexico. So this is the icon the next 48 hours. Icon is extremely, extremely out of the way compared to all these models. It's just really, really pushing it, for my opinion. Look, as we get the next 69 hours, already at 987 millibars, which is quite crazy to actually see compared to the other models there. A 987 millibars. Wait until this thing actually fully reloads. So we're going to come back to this once it fully reloads. So let's go ahead and wait for that. But let's go ahead and check out the vorticity signature for the GFS. Of course, we have little vorticity signature, but it's an invest, so you can't expect much really. But as you see, that vorticity signature kind of falls apart in the middle of the Bay of Campeche. GFS has yet to show anything interesting, in my opinion. And then CMC, next 30 hours, we have a nice vorticity signature there. And then as you see, it's a huge vorticity signature as it does move into advances in the Gulf of Mexico. Right here is where we're watching the system. Right here by June 5th is where possibly a massive system. And then we have it making landfall in between Texas and Louisiana. Icon model, as we actually wait for this thing to fully reload. Let's go ahead and check out that. And let's go check out the favorable conditions. So for those people who want to say, oh, there's going to be, for people saying there's a ton of wind shear. Yes, there's a ton of wind shear, but there's a ton of wind shear right now. Remember, this thing's in the Bay of Campeche for quite a couple of days here. This thing's going to be in the Bay of Campeche for the next couple of days. As you see, very little shear for the whole Bay of Campeche. So it has favorable conditions where this actually is. Like I said in the video, early in the video, we have a ton of wind shear flow in the Caribbean and for the parts of the northern Gulf of Mexico. But as we get later into the next 90 hours, we have the shear really dying down for the western Gulf of Mexico. This thing's going to be kind of at this point right here at this point. So this thing's going to have very favorable conditions by the time it actually advances in the Gulf of Mexico. You see, here you have this low pressure system. You can see right here, the low pressure system of where the system is right here. Very little shear. We have a ton of shear to the north of this, but this thing's going to have extreme favorable conditions, and it's going to have no shear by the time it makes landfall. Like literally no shear whatsoever for much of the Gulf of Mexico. So like basically, in conclusion, we have very favorable conditions for the system. If that's not enough, let's go ahead and check out here the humidity here. So for those people who say there's dry air, there's no dry air. Even right now, there's no dry air for much of the Gulf. Almost like 90% of the Gulf is actually very moist. As we now take over into now June 7th, when this thing is actually in the middle of the Gulf, look at this. Very favorable conditions. No dry air in the atmosphere where the system's going to be here. Very moist air, a lot of humidity. This thing's going to have perfect conditions here. And as you see, we have a little dry air kind of getting in that general vicinity before landfall, which is actually, of course, why it actually weakens before landfall. but in the where there's actually low pressure, where the general low pressure system is, it's still moist, but it kind of dies down, that moist air. So that's really the only amount of dry air, but it's very, very little, and it's not even really in the where the low pressure system is. So it's it's a really iffy situation. And then of course the Icon's getting this up to a 986 millibars by the next 72 hours. So very interesting for this next update here. As you see, this thing's definitely going to be a massive system. Look at this. Next 96 hours, this thing's going to be at 973 millibars. Major system, as you see. A major system. This is extreme. This is extreme compared to all the other models. This is possibly showing close to hurricane force winds right here. Could possibly see up to maybe 60 knots. Almost 60 knots there. So that's very, very interesting, really, to see that the Icon compared to all the other models. The only thing that's even close, or not even, the only thing that's kind of like this is the CMC, but CMC does not show this thing at this extent, not even at all. And you can see that eye right here, this eye right there. We have no winds. That eye, and here we have, of course, that eye wall right there, meaning that counterclockwise for rotation. So this thing is absolutely crazy. So the Icon, if the Icon just plays out, this will be a major hurricane, possibly reaching Category 3 force wind, which is considered major. This is not even close to it. This thing could possibly get to 960 millibars, but this is a new update, which we're still waiting for. So we're gonna go ahead and wait for this update and see exactly how this plays out. So let's go ahead and check out the radar here for the this kind of has updated a good bit. So as you see, this thing's gonna be really strengthening a ton as this thing does go in the Gulf based on the Icon model. I mean, if this Icon model actually is correct, I can't for sure say, because models are all over the place. We don't have a general general area. Yes, we have a cone, but that's just a general cone based on the model. It's not like the GFS or CMC or Icon showing it all the same. But all the next 105 hours, this thing could be at 969 millibars. That could possibly very well be quite a strong hurricane at this point here, especially for June 5th, which is usually we don't see activity at this point in most hurricane seasons. So this thing's going to bring a rain all the way to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. This thing's going to bring rain all the way up over there. This thing's going to bring rain all the way over there into the southeastern coast from the system. This thing can actually bring in rain to Georgia and South Carolina when it's all the way in the middle of the Gulf. That is 1,000+ miles of advanced rain there. That's absolutely crazy. And we can check out the new winds here. This thing can very well be at 968 millibars by the 108th hour on June 6th. And this thing can possibly bring it to 40+ knots before it actually reaches Louisiana, even close to Louisiana. So this thing's a massive system, as you guys can tell, an absolute monster. This thing's going to be absolutely crazy if it actually does play out. Models have been showing this for weeks, or for a week plus, and I actually did predict something happening like this. Not really the big Campeche, but I did predict something happening very big in the Gulf of Mexico to make a landfall in the U.S. in June, and I predicted that all the way from April, and also I predicted that on many streams as well. So we're going to continue to wait for this update. It's trying to get up to 138 hours or more. So we're going to have to just continue to wait for this new update. So I'll continue to actually press record again once it actually does update here. So this thing is actually taking a very long time to load. I've been waiting 20+ minutes for this thing to actually load. And it's got like all the way to the end, but there's like a whole gap. But I'm just going to show you guys what this actually shows. And if I have to, I'll do a video later today, which probably won't happen. But as you see, we got 114 hours. This thing will bring in up to some really strong winds, getting up to 968 millibars, and then by the next 123 hours, this thing's going to avoid that landfall for Louisiana or central Louisiana and kind of go like that. And as you see, we can possibly have 64 knots on this. So category 1 force winds, and then 159 hours, this thing will be 981 millibars for parts of Texas. I do apologize with a huge gap. I've been waiting forever for this thing to actually load. I don't know why there's a gap when it should load in order, but not exactly sure why that's happening there. And if you look at the radar here as well, same thing, a big gap. But here we are seeing the strong rain there, and then it could possibly bring a lot of flooding for parts of the Texas area. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and bye guys.